Hi, my name is Erica Robinson, and I will be covering two theories today. The first one is Erickson's psychosocial development. And with this, in this theory, Erickson has 8 stages. But first, a little bit about Erik Erickson. He developed the psychosocial development theory, and he was influenced by Freud, but he emphasized, Erik Erickson emphasized on the cultural and society's impact on a human life. He also believed that there was room for growth throughout one's whole life. So Erickson focused on infants all the way to adulthood. And he broke it up into 8 different stages. And within these stages, if one was to complete the first stage or the next stage, they would be able to move on, and then they would have a healthy personality and characteristic strengths. For instance, if a student or a child did not, if they failed to complete a stage, they would have a difficult time moving along, and they wouldn't have a sense of self. So within the first stage is trust versus mistrust. And this is in regards to a 1-year-old. And for a 1-year-old, they're looking for consistency in a caregiver. So if they have a caregiver that is consistent and is attentive to them, then they will thrive and build trust. But if they have someone who does not respond to them when they cry or when they need to be fed or changed, they will build mistrust. So the second stage is autonomy versus shame, and this is age 2 to 3 years. During this stage, children explore independence. So during this time, they want to try and do things on their own. So they want to try and feed themselves, or they want to try and go and interact with another child. And during this time, if a parent or a guardian is excessively demanding of them, perhaps, then they can feel shame. Or if they are being very criticized, they'll feel shame, and then they will regress. So during this stage, children want to explore their independence. And then the third stage is initiative versus guilt. And this is age 3 to 5 years. And during this time, children play with others. So during this time, this is when it's about preschool age, entering TK. And so children want to interact with others and they want to play. So in this instance, we want to see children initiate play. And we don't want to focus on making them feel guilty for doing that. We want to encourage them to interact with others and to initiate play. Then the fourth stage is industry versus inferiority. This is age 6 to 12 years. And this is when they gain self-esteem and need approval from others. They seek out approval from others. So during this time, this is when a child is looking inwards as well, and they are wanting to have a sense of self, basically, but they don't want to feel inferior to others. So this is a very important time for children, and this is between age 6 and 12. Okay, then moving on to stage 5, identity versus role confusion. So this is age 12 to 18 years old. And during this stage, they want to know who they are, and they want to feel unique in themselves. So this is where they find they've already found their independence, but they want to find their own uniqueness within themselves. And during this time, they look for their identity. They search for their identity. And sometimes during this time, that is when it says versus role confusion. So knowing oneself. And then stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation. This is a big age range from age 18 to 40 years old. And then during this time, individuals search for love and intimacy. And so during this age, if they aren't finding that connection with someone, with the intimacy and the love, they usually isolate themselves and are not really engaged with others intimately. So then moving on to stage 6, generativity versus stagnation. And this is 40 years to retirement age. So during this time, they have a sense of care for others. They are thinking about others. They're thinking about their future. They are planning for their future. And during this stage, the opposite can happen, where they become stagnant and they are complacent with where they are. They don't really have set goals for themselves of where they might see themselves within the next 10, 20 years. So that's 40 years to retirement. And then the last stage, which is number 8, integrity versus despair. And so during this stage, it's 65 years of age to death. So during this time, they're contemplating their life and basically thinking about the legacy that they're going to leave behind. Sometimes during this stage, they can feel despair, knowing that they're closer in age to death. And so that is stage 8. Okay, moving on. So now we have our social emotional development. And it was interesting as I was reading this that it kind of has similarities to Erickson's theory. So if you see those similarities, that's pretty cool. So with social emotional development, there are some key points to this. The ability to identify and understand one's own feelings and understanding how we're feeling and why we're feeling that way. To accurately read and comprehend emotional states in others. So that's part of empathy, understanding others' emotions. To manage strong emotions and their expressions in a constructive manner. Another point is to regulate one's own behavior to develop empathy for others. So that's really important with children, as we see as educators, especially in the toddler classrooms, where children need to learn how to use their words and not their hands. And so another point that I read about was they establish and maintain relationships. And that's important moving forward within when I looked at Erickson's, that was one of the main points that I noticed was to see those relationships and to see them throughout the stages, so that when you do get to stage 8, when you're feeling like that despair, you have those relationships to kind of counteract that. So some of the terminology for social emotional was responsive caregiving. And this is just where infants are supported with their emotions. And then another terminology was emotional security, where infants have a sense of security from their caregivers and know they are safe. And then number 3 was temperament, and that is a communication system based on emotional expressions. Number 4, emotion regulation. Children manage their emotions and respond to situations in regards to how they're feeling. So if a child, for emotional regulation, if a child is feeling threatened, they're probably going to cry, or they're probably going to lash out and try and hit. So another terminology was impulse control. And this helps children adapt to social situations and follow the rules. This is learning in school, right? Routine and procedures. Okay, another terminology that that was in the reading was social understanding. So children start to comprehend what they should expect from others and how to talk. So effective, number 7, is a communication system based on emotional expression. The number 8, empathy. Again, empathy, knowing what another person is feeling. Number 9 is self-efficacy, and that's makes children feel confident in their own abilities and act independently. And that also kind of connects with Erickson's theory, right, about letting children be independent and giving them that space to feel vulnerable enough to feel independent. And then number 10 is sense of self is established by having a positive support system that helps them understand situations around them. Okay, and that is the two theories, social emotional terminology and Erickson's theory. Thank you.